We'll call this regular council meeting to order. I'd like to recognize that we're meeting on the traditional lands of the LHTAKO DENE, and we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Any errors or omissions? No. Call the question then. All those in favor, and then we'll, yes? I'm sorry, thank you very much. And then we have two late additions to the agenda. I-1 committee reports, executive committee chair summary from Councillor Vic, and council information package number 4, L2, brought forward by Councillor Goulet. With that then, any errors or omissions on the agenda? Okay, all those in favor of approval? And we'll wait a second. Unanimous, thank you. Is that appropriate? Okay. Adoption of the regular minutes. They adopt the regular minutes of June 29th. Yeah, so moved, Councillor Paul, seconded Councillor Goulet. All those in favor? None opposed, that's unanimous, thank you. Adopt the public hearing minutes of June 29th. Councillor Rudenberg, Councillor Vic. All those in favor? Questions, comments, nothing? Thank you, that's unanimous as well. We'll slide right into delegations, and I'll ask our delegation from the Regional Rent Bank to turn their videos on. I think we're there. There we go. Thank you very much. And maybe you could take 1 second and introduce yourself, and thank you for being here tonight.
Hi there. So I just wanted to say thank you for inviting us to your delegation tonight. My name is Bree, and I'm the communications coordinator and project lead for the development of a rent bank in the Williams Lake area with the Social Planning Council of Williams Lake and areas. The Social Planning Council of Williams Lake is a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the social well-being of residents and families in our area. And tonight we're going to be sharing information about the development of a rent bank, a poverty reduction priority action from the Thrive Poverty Reduction Strategy, a strategy which can be found on the SPC website. So dependent on funding and partnerships, the board of the Social Planning Council has approved taking the lead agency role in a rent bank pilot. Our goal is to start a rent bank pilot that will operate from September 1st to 2021 to March 31st, 2022. The pilot will allow us to evaluate the feasibility and sustainability of the rent bank in our region. A regional rent bank model would serve as Quesnel, Williams Lake, and 100 Mile House. And at that, I'm just going to hand the floor over to Melissa from the BC Rent Bank.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Bree. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for having us here. I am the project lead. And for those of you who are not familiar with BC Rent Bank, this is a project of Vancity Community Foundation with funding provided by the province of BC. A rent bank at its heart is a homelessness prevention initiative that is focused on keeping people who are living in affordable market rental housing the opportunity to stay housed or to acquire housing by offering them interest-free loans when they are at risk of eviction or when they need to move into safe housing. This, of course, is focused on the prevention side of things, and our goal is to keep people housed. So as a mandate, the 3-year pilot project was established in the June of 2019, again with funding provided by the province of BC. And the mandate of our program is really threefold. That's to support the funding of existing rent banks. There were 7 of them in the province. The second is to provide support and seed funding for the establishment of new rent banks throughout the province. And the third is to create the infrastructure that is needed to support a provincial-wide rent bank system. So as far as how we're going or how we're doing on meeting that mandate, I offer this infographic, which shares with you some of the things that have happened in the first 2 years of the program. So you can see that we have 70% growth in locations. We're actually can now announce that we have 18 rent banks. We opened one recently in the Kootenays, and you can see some others there. When we started our work, there was approximately 42% of the renter population that had access to these services. We now estimate that's at 91% of the renter population. But of course, we recognize that we don't have service in all communities, and that's why we've come to speak with you tonight. We've also developed a number of online resources that have been helpful both in the midst of COVID, but also ensuring that we have consistent practices across all of our rent bank systems. That includes a province-wide client management system that allows us to work with clients in meaningful ways. And you can see in the center of this infographic, we did a short study last year over a 3-month period of time. And we found that people who were assisted with grants or with loans were 100% stably housed after a 3-month period of time. And we know that those that received the loans solely, that 82% of those remained stably housed after a 3-month period of time. So we're starting to see the impact of rent banks. We're starting to note that they are making a difference in helping to keep people housed. And I'll end with this before handing it over to Vicki. We are here tonight because I know from my own experience, having been the project lead for the last 2 years, that municipal partnerships are absolutely key in establishing these rent bank services, both within regions, but also within municipalities. And we have many strong examples, New Westminster, Nanaimo, Burnaby, and others, where municipal partnerships are making a key difference. They're making an effective change within the community. And so, yeah, we wanted to come and share with you tonight a little bit about what rent banks are doing, as well as the Bree Rent Bank project. And I'm going to hand it over to Vicki.
Hi, thanks for having us tonight. I am the tenant relations person for DeKalb and Quesnel Community Housing. And we just wanted to let you know that we are in complete support of the rent bank project. And we know that there's a need in our community for the rent bank. So we're committed to being part of this endeavor in any way we can. And we're certainly more than happy to partner with anyone who's interested in being part of it. So we already have a presence in the community with people that are not our tenants, but are comfortable calling and talking to us about problems they may have with rent, getting advice and support with housing issues. So we really think that the rent bank is a good fit with our society's mandate, which is to give people safe and affordable housing. So we would be in support of, in any way, we're in support in any way we can of the rent bank, and however that looks in our area. So we, again, thank you for letting us come and talk to you about it. And that's what we're prepared to offer in a way of support.
Okay, thank you very much. We're just going to slide into questions then, I would assume. Do we have any questions from council? Councillor Vic, please.
Thank you. Hi, Vicki. Nice to see you.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. So are you saying, Vicki, that DeKalb would sort of be the face of the program? Is that what you're sort of implying there, that in terms of support? What do you mean?
Well, I don't know that we're not prepared, I don't think, to take the lead in this, but we're certainly willing to a part, whether that's in I would do the intake piece of it. But yeah, we're certainly, and maybe we would be the face of it in Quesnel. I don't know how that would look for us yet, Mitch, but we're certainly prepared to have a role.
I guess as a follow-up question, in other communities, what is the face of the rent bank? Is there a separate office, or do you have a partner organization that takes the lead on applications and things like that?
I guess, sorry, yeah, Melissa can probably answer that.
Sure. When we originally started, we had 7 rent banks. They were primarily in the Metro Vancouver area. These are all nonprofit organizations that are focused on helping people in different ways. And so the rent bank became a component of what they already offer. As we grew our strategy across the province, we recognized that we could not establish rent banks in every single municipality. There was no financial sustainability to that, and it would duplicate a lot of the services. So what we typically do within a regional approach is we have a lead agency that we sign a funding agreement with, and then they have community partners that they know and work with so they can both assist people in the application process as well as refer people to other community supports. So it's possible, I think that Bree can clarify, but that CSBC is looking at being the anchor agency, and potentially there could be a site in Quesnel where people who are experiencing challenges know where they can turn for services.
Yeah, so if I could add to that, definitely the Social Planning Council of Williams Lake is willing to take the lead as the agency that's the face of the rent bank in the pilot stage. We're not, we don't deliver direct services, our society. We do develop strategies and plans to implement across the community. So as the lead in the pilot, we definitely would be the ones who would be signing the contract with the BC Rent Bank and being the face across the region if it turns into a regional model. If DELEGATION chooses at the end of the pilot to become the lead agency, by all means, that would be something that could be talked about as we progress and look at the feasibility and sustainability of the rent bank at the end of the pilot project.
Okay, thank you very much. I think for all of us, this is kind of a big learning curve, just even hearing about what's taking place in other communities, and it sounds exceptional. But I think Director Turner wanted to, no?
No, thank you. They clarified what I was wanting to ask.
Okay, perfect. Okay, any other further questions from council? Just one then, would you be looking for, first of all, this sounds tremendous, the possibilities. I mean, we all want to keep people housed, especially, you know, in the rentals and things like this. And would there be a financial commitment down the road that you would be looking for from municipalities, or how does that work?
We definitely invite municipal partners into the funding partnerships. There are other key strategic ways. Municipal leaders have opened doors to other community partners and funding partners. We've also seen effectively that some city staff sit on the review process, which allows them insight into what's happening in the rental market and things like that. So it definitely, from our perspective, from the provincial government's perspective, having local partners is exceptional and something we really welcome. But we also know there's a number of other key skill sets that staffers offer, that city staff offer to the program as well.
Okay, I want to thank you very much for the presentation. I'm sure we're all going to be learning a lot more about this in the near future. So thank you very much, and you got her beat by about 45 seconds. So thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Then we will move on to, what is that? I1, late item from Councillor Vick. And just before we start with Councillor Vick, I was remiss to mention that Mayor Simpson isn't here, obviously, tonight. So as acting mayor, I'm in the chair. Councillor Vick, with your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I apologize, first of all, if this is coming a little late. The meeting was last Thursday, but I wanted to try and get it in here because there are a couple of important topics that I wanted to bring council up to date on. So the first thing, so this is pertaining to the ACOM meeting from July 15th. So the first item that we discussed is we heard from Manager Reed regarding the status of the visitor guide for next year, for 2022. So the current contract the chamber has in place to produce that guide has ended, and it will not continue. And this is opening up a unique opportunity for us to try something a little bit different. In the past, we all know about the visitor guide. It's been an important part of our strategy for visitors coming into town, but there could be time for a change, and with technology changing and expectations changing from visitors, I think this is the time to make a change. So here are some reasons why. Technology has improved. We have better cell service right from the corridor right through to Quesnel from the Lower Mainland. We have better handheld devices for viewing websites and information about communities. It's just easier. The early setup of printed guides often means the information is out of date by the time the guide is actually distributed. So the lag between inception, conception, and delivery is quite long. So you often have businesses that are already closed that may be in the guide, or more importantly, especially pertaining to our issues with COVID, events that were long planned and in a guide are canceled. So that's one example. Additionally, predicting needed copies of guides is difficult, and it can often lead to waste, as hundreds of guides are just landfilled or recycled. And then lastly, and most importantly, our newly launched tourism website, which went live last week, I believe, is mobile friendly. It's fantastic. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, you need to. It's very fast. It has features in it that I've never seen on city assets from much larger cities, such as you can actually plug in your itinerary and build a trip while you're in Quesnel. And then, of course, the site also provides links to businesses and tourism opportunities in the community. So it's a very robust site, and I think it can meet that challenge of taking the requests and sort of the questions that visitors would pose. In place of an official guide, a printed flat sheet or tri-fold brochure could be produced and be suitable for racking at our visitor center and visitor centers throughout the province, and of course beyond. This brochure would be highly visual and direct visitors to the website for more information via a QR code or similar technology. And I know many of us have been exposed to that already. When you go into restaurants these days, especially during COVID, there was not actually a physical menu in many cases. You actually have to scan an image of a code, which brings up a menu. So that kind of technology could be utilized. Further, a brochure may not require a revision every year like a visitor guide does, thereby saving time and printing costs, all while decreasing waste. Currently, the city pays $4,500 just to cover the distribution of the guide. The estimated cost of producing our own brochure and distributing it would be approximately the same. So I have a recommendation to follow at the end of my report regarding the visitor guide, but I'll continue with my report to the next item. Next, we discussed Laborde Park and our wish to continue or to begin a master plan approach to the future of Laborde. In the spirit of getting grant-ready projects ready to go, Executive received a report from staff regarding a recommendation to develop a Laborde Park master plan. Laborde Park, as we know, is a focal point in our community and is viewed by many as our top park and most important park asset. As the park has evolved by adding new amenities like the new children's playground, a repurposed Sherari House, the revamped museum facade and interior, and of course the visitor center, planning horsepower must now come to bear to address the aging infrastructure that is in the park, such as the water park for kids and the bandstand. As well, and active transportation routes need to be reimagined throughout the park. Lastly, considering the very high utilization of this park by so many groups, we must ask if we are using all park space to its full potential. So the first part, or the first phase of this master planning exercise will be to thoroughly engage the community by asking citizens to weigh in on key aspects of Laborde Park. This presents an ideal opportunity to utilize our new online engagement tools, Bang the Table, which is part of our strategy for engagement this year. When engagement concludes and council approves of the vision, the next step will be to synthesize those concepts and provide greater detail, with the end goal being to deliver a capital plan and implementation strategy. Currently, the budget allows for this type of planning work under the pre-planning for grants account, and the goal will be to begin that engagement process by early fall. So that's the end of my report. Acting Mayor Elliott.
Thank you, Councillor Vick. So do we have any questions or comments, I guess, first of all, on Laborde Park? Because we'll look at the recommendation and have questions and comments on that. Okay, I think this is wonderful work. It's obviously something that should be done. And as you say, it's such a valuable asset. So it'll be very interesting to see where we come out of that with the comments from the community. So did you want to speak to your recommendation then, Councillor Vick?
Yeah, so pertaining to the first part of my report regarding the visitor guide, I would move the recommendation that ECOM recommends that the city transition to a new online campaign for visitors supported by a brochure product, replacing the printed guide, and that this change occurs for a trial period of 3 years. I would move that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Vick. Do I have a second on that? Councillor Rudenberg, any questions or comments, please? Councillor Runn.
Thanks, Councillor Vick, for the report. I love these late reports. Anyway, it just makes it tough for us to, think about everything that might happen. Anyway, with regards to the brochure, I think it's actually a fairly good idea. I would like to make a suggestion, though, that brochure has a final page. It's like a postcard that you can take out, because you're already creating a quality brochure, and you have so let's say and you pull out the postcard on the end, and they can send it away with it, promoting us also one step further there. So it's just, I think it can be done in the brochure with everything. Something to think about. I think that'd be wonderful. And with us not having a guide, will that cause any kind of changes in racking fees at the different visitor centers across the province? Or are those already covered by Tourism BC for municipalities? I guess the question is to you. Thank you.
Yep, so we can share our official guide with visitor centers, and it gets racked at visitor centers around the province. So this would take the place of our official guide. It shouldn't create a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you, but there was also a question about the cost. So would the cost be different?
No, we don't pay to rack our official guide. That's done around the province at the visitor centers. So there would be no change.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this? No, so I'll take the vote then. All those in favor? Thank you very much. None opposed. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Vick, for that. And I understand it was late and no one likes that, but when you have a meeting on Thursday, it makes it almost impossible to get it in here on time. So do city staff reports then, administration report 8921, rezoning application for Doherty Drive. Director Turner to report, please. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Goulet. Councillor Goulet is declared a conflict of interest, so we'll just ask him to leave the room until we're done with this.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to review an amendment to the zoning bylaw and official community plan to allow for the conversion of a 2-level commercial complex to a 3-level apartment at 668 Doherty Drive, with the associated parking and amenity space to be located at 333 Willis Street. The conversion, again, converts a 2-level commercial building into a 3-level apartment. So that's creating an additional story within the existing building frame. It will convert it into 15 units that will range between 29.5 meters squares to 69.2 meters squared in floor area. So these are small unit apartments. The apartment will be located at 668 Doherty with the parking plan and associated building space, as I've stated, across Willow Street, which is a bit of an odd request, which is why we're bringing this as an early look for council. Moving into some additional information, the property was built in 1998, after demolishing an original building. There was a change in occupancy that occurred on the main floor when it was altered. In 2000, a covenant was placed on the building for the property to be used as commercial space only, and to be used for parking was also not, requirements were not met at that time, and there was a covenant on the property that directed parking to an alternate site further down, a couple of blocks down, actually. The facade changes to the exterior are required and will need to be reviewed. We just put a picture of the building frontage here just to show that this overall building frame is not going to change, but they are going to be creating a interior story within there. The reasoning is the first floor provides enough space that they feel that they can lower that floor and create another story in there. So again, the facade is obviously going to change due to window changes, et cetera, and that will be brought back should a council wish to proceed with this application. The single detached building on Willis Street was constructed in 1959 and is currently used as rental and has always been a residential space. The proposal is to utilize this space for some kind of amenity space for the residents of their apartment. That's yet to be determined exactly what it is. They're also requesting that storage space be allowed in the basement of that rental for the tenants. So one of the interesting issues, again, is the parking, and that's what really we want council to be considering before we go too far, because there is some parking concerns that staff have with respect to the layout, and you will see the layout in the attachment, in the attached site plan that shows the parking being around the existing residential building, which is going to be converted to that residential space. There is some concerns because the present plan shows that the parking will be backing out onto Willis Street in some sections and backing out into the laneways on the other two sides of the property. Again, we are a bit concerned about this because those are active. That is a very active laneway. It's active enough that it's a paved laneway in the rear there for that use. There's no, with respect to the zoning, there's no current multi-residential zone, if I can say it, that would allow the proposed development. A table reviewing the proposed based units based on the residential zones that we have and the highest densities we have has been provided. As such, we are recommending that if council does want to go down this road, that we continue to talk to the proponent about doing a zone very similar to what we've done in the downtown, which is the C3R, so more a zone that can transition back and forth from residential to commercial. We feel that this would make sense in the present location of this building. And again, I just want to stress that development permit will be required, and we will be talking to, if we do proceed down this road, we'll be talking to the proponents about further improvements to the building. But I would like to know if council has any questions or concerns at this time.
Okay, council, any questions? Councillor Rudenberg, please.
Thank you. So the 3CR piece, I can see the benefits to it. Are there any cons to rezoning it to a 3CR area for this particular building? proposal, I should say?
Not really. The zoning, I'm seeing it as a plus to continue on. It allows that higher density, which, might be more permissible in the higher, in commercial/residential zones. I think that those sort of transitional areas allow that, and zones where we would expect less vehicles and maybe more walking, et cetera, and especially when you're talking about these lower, these smaller end residentials, all of that sort of fits. So the zoning in itself, I'm not so much worried about as it is the construction of the additional space. We will have to figure out how, as we can work with the property owner to either link the properties via subdivision, or definitely at the end, if we decide not to go down that route, we will make sure these properties are linked via covenant so that they cannot be extracted, right? So the biggest concerns, I think, at this time for us are just the traffic and parking arrangements. If all of that parking is required back there, which, definitely it does feel like if there's parking provided, it does get filled. So we're a little concerned about how it's laid out, and would like to have further discussions about possibly having the developer think of other alternatives.
Councillor Runge, please.
Yes, thank you. I guess I have a few questions, but one of my questions to Tanya is that commercial space only covenant from years ago, I guess it was from 1991 or the early 90s. Do we know why they gave that at that time?
I think it would have been I believe the units were existing, so it might have been a bit of a concession. Would be my guess if I'm looking at the files correctly.
All right, and then so there are. I actually am really worried about the parking, given what I see happening even downtown with stop signs where there is a stop sign and people just going around that corner. There's no stop sign there, so as people will turn into Willis, as someone pulls out, I believe we're setting ourselves up for a liability issue there with cars coming out, someone coming around the corner, smashing right into the car. So that part, has me quite worried. The other question I have is with regards to the parking property being used as, well, in the letter it was a clubhouse or a daycare, and now also additional storage. It just doesn't jive with the parking and the safety around on that for me right now, especially with, either a clubhouse or a daycare means that there's more people walking back and forth, and there's tons of blind angles there. So that, which goes again to parking in that laneway and just the property. And I guess the final thing is, that'll be it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Runge. Councillor Paul, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Question to staff regarding the parking and your comment about or I guess your concern about tenant parking backing out into an active laneway. Would you say that this would be sort of equally problematic as vehicles backing out, say, onto Reed Street, which is much more active?
Excuse me, thank you. Councillor Paul, I would think that Reed Street being a street, which is very clear that has the parking, people are driving down there aware that people are going to be coming out, backing out all the time. I'm not sure that's a case if you're going down an alleyway, for sure. I mean, we do try to minimize that in areas where people wouldn't expect to have vehicles just jutting out. So those are the concerns, right? In a commercial space that's heavily commercial, I think that it's not a comparable.
Thank you. So is this a game changer for staff? Like, is that critical to staff that if the plan is for tenant parking to back out onto an active laneway, would staff be recommending some other alternative?
The alternative that staff would be looking for would be to direct the developer to go back to the drawing board and think of an option there. And I think that there is some idea. Willis Street, that the parking stalls that they have along Willis Street are just a no-go for staff. We'll be saying that we'd like to see those removed as parking. And I don't think that they're necessarily required for the number of units that they're going to have, especially given the fact that they're saying that that this will be low. That there will be a low requirement for parking given the small units and in the expected tenancies. So we could see removing those quite fine. We would like the proponent to go back and reconsider how they lay out that parking in the back. Truthfully, I'd like them to reconsider having the amenity space and utilizing that space for parking, period, would be my ideal. The problem is that it is a big space for 15 units. So it's kind of a mix and match for what they have available to them.
And one more question, if I may. The plan shows that the smallest suite is 318 square feet, I think. Is that too small? Like, is there a limit or a lower limit for a rental housing unit?
Not that we have currently have specified in our zoning bylaw. It's certainly not lower than some places have been allowing in some of the larger cities, which are going down, around 200, 215, I believe, is some of the lowest I'm hearing, to some of the lower micro units, they call them in the cities. So definitely there's claims, and we hear this from a lot of people that there is market for these type of small units, so I think it's definitely doable. And from a building code perspective, they'll have to make sure that it meets all the requirements of a residential unit.
Councillor Vick.
Thank you. I'll echo what has been said about the parking. I guess I have similar concerns. Having toured the site recently just to have a look, people are already parking in precarious places in that alleyway, and as much as the community needs rental units, I think the parking needs to be figured out, especially if we're going to compel the proponent to put a charging stall in there, which would add further pressure to this layout, which I don't think even has a provision for a charging stall or bicycle racks or any of that stuff. So, and then the snow storage is indicated on here, but I believe there's call for a rock-based snow storage, rock fill or whatever. So I just think there's a lot of pressure on this schematic here to fit the parking in properly. And I don't know if without short-circuiting this process, can we have a conversation with the proponent first before initiating all of this to see if there is a possibility of another parking plan?
That's what staff will be going back to the proponent with, if the council so chooses.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I think before we get into the recommendation,
And the recommendation here, just so council's aware, this is an early look, and we just felt that this was had enough concerns around it that we really wanted to give council an early look even before we drafted bylaws or got underway in the process.
Thank you for the clarity on that. And I think each councillor has stepped up with concerns about the parking and the situation. Councillor Runge has mentioned the clubhouse and the need for that. You've mentioned the possibility of the not having that clubhouse, and maybe there is too much parking, but that might alleviate some of the issues for sure. So, will the council here? Yeah, Director Turner, please.
Were you asking me to go into the recommendation, sir?
I think we should, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The recommendation is that council directs staff to proceed with the application to amend the zoning of 668 Doherty Drive for the conversion of a commercial building into 15-unit apartment utilizing 33 Willis for the associated parking, and that council directs staff to draft amending bylaws subject to obtaining confirmation on the use of the amenity space, plans for facade changes that will be required for the conversion, linking the lots so they become one legal title or utilization of a covenant to not allow sale of one property without the other, updated parking plan to be submitted with the development permit, and storm water management plans.
On the recommendation, Councillor Paul moves. Get it on the table. Do I have a second? Councillor Rudenberg. Any conversation on this? Any questions? Okay, we feel confident we're covered up on all the issues if staff goes back. Thank you. I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That was unanimous. Thank you, Director Turner. Councillor Rudenberg? Yep. Thank you for that, Councillor Goulet. Next, on to Administrative Report 8821, Northern Development Initiative Trust Strategic Initiative Fund Application, Accessory Dwelling Initiatives. Councillor Blair to report.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to gain Council's approval to submit an application to Northern Development Initiative Trust Strategic Initiatives Fund for an accessory dwelling incentive project. Providing incentives to increase accessory dwelling unit construction has many economic benefits and arguably environmental benefits as well by increasing housing density without increasing urban sprawl. This accessory dwelling incentive project will include 2 full sets each of carriage house and secondary dwelling plans with accessibility options, 1 full set of plans for a passive house secondary dwelling, incentive programs to rebate building permit fees and step code fees for the construction of a carriage house or secondary dwelling, public consultation sessions for site accessory dwelling unit construction readiness, community engagement page on the new public engagement platform, Bang the Table, updates to the accessory dwelling units landing page on the city website to incorporate information directly into the website and to make it more mobile-friendly version, and mixed media marketing campaigns for the 6 months pre and 18 months post-plan design development in order to increase public awareness and uptake for the incentives. Does anyone have any questions? I'll move on to the recommendations. That Quesnel City Council supports the application to Northern Development Initiative Trust's Strategic Initiatives Fund for the Accessory Dwelling Incentive Project, and that Quesnel City Council contributes up to $21,567 towards this project out of the council initiatives budget.
Thank you. Councillor Rudenberg moves. Do I have a second? Councillor Vick. Councillor Paul with a question, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Just a question on the city's contribution of 21,000 and change. I'm presuming that 21,000 wouldn't be coming out of the council initiatives budget if the application for the NDI grant is denied.
That's correct. Yep.
Right? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. I'll move on to Administration Report 8721, Canada Community Revitalization Fund Application, Wayfinding. Coordinator Blair to report.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to gain Council's approval to submit an application to the Canada Community Revitalization Fund for the Riverfront Trail Wayfinding project. This grant will supplement $30,000 in funding from the Northern Development Initiative Trust to implement our Riverfront Trail wayfinding, adding on-brand wayfinding around the Riverfront Trail system. The wayfinding design is based on the 2018 wayfinding strategy and will complement vehicular wayfinding and downtown pedestrian wayfinding. The project includes 42 posts with wayfinding to landmarks, up to 3 new kiosks with updated maps displayed at the kiosks. Content will be replaced on all existing kiosks with an updated map and information pertaining to trail use and contract management support. If there's no questions, I'll just move on to the recommendations.
Yes, please.
That Quesnel City Council supports the application to the Canada Community Revitalization Fund for the project to create community wayfinding in Quesnel, British Columbia for $118,325, and that Quesnel City Council contributes up to $88,324 towards this project out of the 2021 capital budget.
Thank you. Can I get a mover? Councillor Vic. Councillor Goulet seconds. Any questions or comments, please? Councillor Runch.
Thank you. My question is with regards to the contract management support, ongoing, annual?
It's just for the duration of the contract to implement the wayfinding, so with urban systems.
Thank you.
Any further questions? So I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. And we'll move into the council information packages and a late agenda item from Councillor Goulet, a letter from the City of Pitt Meadows Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action number 75. Councillor Goulet, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I put this forward just to say that maybe we should look at, as a council, doing a letter in a similar way to support that Truth and Reconciliation. They are talking about the call to action at number 75, which is down the line a little bit. Maybe this will put some pressure on them to move that up. What this does is it brings light to and starts the conversation on how we move forward with the Truth and Reconciliation, and how we move forward with what's happening right across Canada and right across every province with the residential schools and things being done there that were just horrific. I had a conversation with a local elder who went to the residential school in Kamloops, and she talks a lot about the unmarked graves and what's happening, and children just going missing, and no records being kept, and all that being just pushed under the table, and very traumatic. But I think where they want to go is how do we move forward and supporting doing this and supporting a registry of some kind, I think, in part of the recommendation, which was happening and then got stalled, to try and get closure for people as they move through this process. So I think by writing a letter, as Pitt Meadows did, they're just asking that we move forward with action number 75. And again, action number 75 does call on the government and all provincial and territories, municipal government, churches, and former residential school students and landowners to look at strategies to help with the ongoing identification of the unmarked graves. So I guess why I brought this forward, and I'm not sure if this is the place to do it, but I would like to make a motion that we do write a letter to the MP, our local MP and MLA, just because this keeps us in the process. I'm always asked what we can do as elected officials, and I think this could be our role to do that and start sort of a small advocacy, I guess, to make that happen. So thanks. That's why I brought this forward. So thank you. And I guess I would move, if that's the process, to write a similar letter to the MP and the MLA.
Okay. City Manager, did you want to chime in before we start here?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Yes, I would like to. So one thing for council to consider is that the city, and in particular our mayor, has been working with the local First Nations over the past while since we started going down the road of trying to see how we could further UNDRIP in this community, and also the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, all of the recommendations, not just selecting one of them. So that next meeting with the local First Nations is actually scheduled for September. It's being delayed first due to COVID, and then due to the residential school findings, which obviously had a huge impact on the local communities. So while I think this is a great letter, and that's a very good call to action, the call to action number 75, and does specifically mention municipalities, I think the approach that the mayor is envisioning with this is a bit more of a broader, more holistic approach, where we work with our local First Nations to really come up, I guess, with more of a unified approach to it. So I think for that reason, that would be one thing that maybe council would consider waiting till we go through that process. But again, that is at the discretion of council. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Councillor Goulet, I want to thank you very much for bringing this forward, but because we're going to be having the meeting with all of the First Nations represented in September, would you be okay with waiting until we have that conversation? Everybody's on board, and then we can move this and maybe more if that's how it works.
Thank you again. Absolutely. I think that might be a better approach. I just wasn't sure when those were going to happen and the timeline on that. So I thought maybe I was premature in bringing this forward. But when I saw this in the Pitt Meadows letter, I thought what a great opportunity for us to engage, right? But if we're already engaging, wonderful. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Goulet. Never a negative to bring something like this forward for discussion. Absolutely. Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I guess this would be a question that maybe Councillor Rudenberg can help us out with, and that is there anything coming down the pike from the Union of BC Municipalities on this? Because I see that there's an opportunity through the Union of BC Municipalities for municipalities and regional districts province-wide to march ahead together rather than each municipality and regional district doing its own thing.
Thank you for that, Councillor Paul. Actually, we just had our set of board meetings last week, and one of our committees is around First Nations and all things working together. There is a discussion happening of how we can move forward as UBCM, given the understanding is that we don't want to be the ones taking the lead. We would like to ask how we can move forward rather than telling people how we should move forward. So the appropriate people are being asked about how we should make this happen. So it is in the works. I can't tell you when or where or what it looks like, but the discussions are there, and it's just about making sure that we go about it, that we're not looked at as pushing the agenda. We want to make sure that we do it right. If we're going to do it as UBCM, we have to make sure that we do it right with our partners. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. It's nice to hear the insight of UBCM, and you know, I think whenever we're having the conversation with First Nations about different situations, and this one, as mentioned by Councillor Goulet, is absolutely horrific. A lot of the comments coming back from First Nations is we would like to be engaged and we would like to be listened to first. So I think what we're doing on our municipality to have those conversations holistically is just going to be a benefit. We'll have the opportunity to listen and then make our decisions as we move forward. So Councillor Goulet, you're okay with that? Thank you, sir. We will move on to correspondence then. July 15th, 2021, Quesnel Downtown Association request for closure of Spirit Square parking lot. Ms. Hartley, are you going to read that out for us?
We received a letter July 15th, 2021 from the Quesnel Downtown Association asking for the Spirit Square parking lot to be closed off October 12th, 2021 for the Downtown Art Walk in the parking lot behind Spirit Square, sorry. The event will include various food vendors, in the square, as well as music or entertainment at the stage starting from mid-afternoon. An information booth will be present with pamphlets on the art walk detailing each downtown location. So 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. is the requested time.
Thank you, Ms. Hartley. Yeah, Councillor Runge moves that. Councillor Paul seconds. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll slide into bylaws. Bylaw 1893, Master Zoning Amendment, final adoption. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Vick. Councillor Rubenberg, second. Questions or comments? Take the vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Bylaw 1894, official community plan amendment, Webster Avenue, final adoption. Yeah, Councillor Vick, Councillor Rudenberg. Questions or comments? Take the vote. Sorry, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And bylaw 1895, zoning amendment, Webster Avenue, final adoption. Questions, comments? None. Moved Councillor Goulet, seconded Councillor Paul. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, no new business. Information and question period. Changes to upcoming meetings or schedules, none. Changes to committee appointments, none. Any announcements or future events? None. Any gallery questions? You good? Cassidy, you're such a joker. Okay, no questions. Motion for adjournment. Everybody. Councillor Runge, Councillor Rudenberg. Thank you, everybody. Oh, we'll take the vote on that. Sorry. Anybody opposed? No. Thank you.